The war ended, but the work was just beginning. The galaxy had been ruled by the Vixari for so long that no one quite knew how to live without them. The Vixari homeworld of Crystallis was not destroyed. The Coalition had learned from human history. Crushing a defeated enemy completely only created more problems later. Instead, the Vixari were given a chance to rebuild as a peaceful species. Their military was disbanded. Their weapons were destroyed. But their people were allowed to govern themselves, with oversight from the new Galactic Council. Many younger Vixari actually welcomed this change. They had grown tired of constant military service and endless conflicts. They wanted to explore other aspects of their culture that had been neglected for centuries. Commander Ji-won spent 3 months in recovery after the battle where Captain Dae-hyun died. Her physical injuries healed quickly. The emotional wounds took longer. She felt guilty for surviving when he had not. She kept thinking about what she could have done differently. Maybe if they had turned away from the Vixari fleet. Maybe if they had waited for reinforcements, but deep down she knew the truth. Dae-hyun had made the only choice possible. 5 million people were alive because of what he did. That had to mean something. Ambassador Yuna visited her in the hospital. "He would be proud of you," Yuna said quietly. "You survived. You made sure the galaxy knew what the Vixari tried to do. You helped win this war." "I should have died with him," Ji-won replied. "No. You should have lived to tell his story. And you did. Now you have to decide what comes next." Ji-won thought about that conversation for weeks. Eventually, she made her decision. She accepted a promotion to Admiral, not because she wanted power, but because she wanted to make sure humans never forgot the cost of this war. The Galactic Council was reformed completely. The old system, where powerful species dominated weaker ones, was abolished. The new system gave every species an equal vote, regardless of their military strength or technological advancement. Ambassador Yuna was elected as the first chair of the new council. It was a 5-year position with strict term limits. No one species would ever dominate again. Her first act as chair was to establish the Dae-hyun Memorial Fund. It provided aid to war refugees and helped rebuild damaged worlds. Every species contributed. Even the Vixari Admiral Kyung-soo retired from active military service. He had spent 40 years as a soldier. The war with the Vixari was his final campaign. But retirement did not mean doing nothing. He became the chief advisor for the Coalition Defense Force. This new organization brought together soldiers from dozens of species. Their mission was to protect all free worlds, not to conquer or dominate. Kyung-soo insisted on sharing human military knowledge freely. He taught classes on strategy and tactics. He explained the principles of asymmetric warfare. He showed other species that you did not need to be the strongest to defend yourself effectively. Some human generals thought he was giving away too much. But Kyung-soo disagreed. "If we keep our knowledge secret," he told them, "then we are no better than the Vixari. They ruled through superior force. We will lead by making everyone stronger." Dr. Hana destroyed all the advanced sonic weapons she had created. She kept only basic defensive versions and the research on how to counter such weapons. She did not want anyone to repeat what she had done, even for good reasons. Instead, she returned to pure research. She studied how different species could live and work together more effectively. Her work on cross-species medicine saved thousands of lives in the years after the war. She never spoke publicly about the weapons. But in her private journals, she wrote about the moral weight of creating tools designed to harm living beings, even enemies. It was a burden she carried for the rest of her life. General Sung Jin became the commander of the Coalition Defense Academy. Young soldiers from every species came to study there. They learned not just how to fight, but why they fought. Sergeant Minjun, who had fought on New Seoul in the early days of the war, became one of the academy instructors. He taught a class called The Cost of War. Students learned about the real consequences of combat. The lives lost, the families broken, the scars that never fully healed. The most popular part of his class was when veterans came to speak. They told their stories honestly, without glory or romance. They wanted the next generation to understand that war should always be a last resort. On Nexus Prime, where the war began, they built a monument. It stood exactly where the indomitable spirit had docked that fateful day. The monument was simple, a statue of a human standing firm looking toward the stars. The inscription read, "One human stood his ground." The galaxy stood up. Below that were the names of every person who died in the war. human and alien alike, soldier and civilian. They were all remembered equally. Trade flourished in the new galaxy. Without the Vexari demanding tribute, species had more resources to invest in their own development. New technologies were shared freely. Scientific discoveries benefited everyone. Counselor Bora watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. She had risked everything to help the humans when they were weak. Now she saw the galaxy her children would inherit, a galaxy of equals, a galaxy of friends. The phrase that started as a threat became a saying posted at every human embassy. Congrats, you just declared war on the galaxy's most dangerous species. But underneath, humans always added their own message. We would rather be friends, and most of the galaxy took them up on that offer. 10 years after the war ended, Admiral Jiwan sat in her office overlooking Earth. She was older now, with gray hair and tired eyes, but she was at peace. A young Vexari officer knocked on her door. His name was Nexal, and he was part of the new generation. He had never fought in the war. He had been just a child when it ended. "Excuse me, Admiral," he said respectfully. "I wanted to ask you something. My teachers tell me about the war, but they were not there. You were. What are humans really like?" Jiwon smiled. She had been asked this question many times over the years, usually by people who still did not quite understand. "We are stubborn," she said. "We do not give up easily, even when we probably should. We are adaptable. We can survive in almost any environment and adjust to almost any situation. We are loyal to those we care about. We will die for our friends and fight for our families." She paused, looking out at the blue planet below. "But most importantly, we would rather build than destroy. We will fight when we must, but we prefer peace. And once you are our friend, we will never abandon you. That is what humans are like." Nexal nodded slowly. He understood now why his people had lost. It was not just about weapons or tactics. It was about values, about what you fight for, not just how you fight. "Thank you, Admiral," he said. "I am glad we are friends now instead of enemies." "So are we," Jiwan replied with a smile. After Nexal left, Jiwan stood and walked to the window. Ships came and went from Earth, traveling to dozens of different worlds. Humans and aliens working together, trading, learning, growing. She thought about Captain Dae-hyun, about his decision not to move his ship, about everything that followed from that one moment of defiance. Was it worth it? All the death and suffering? All the lives lost? She looked at the peaceful galaxy outside her window, at the Vexari officer who had just left, seeking to understand rather than dominate, at the future that was now possible because one human refused to accept that might made right. Yes, she decided. It was worth it. Outside, the stars shone on a galaxy forever changed, not by the strongest species or the most advanced technology, but by the simple human belief that everyone deserved dignity and freedom. The Vexari had been right about one thing. Humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy, not because they were strong, not because they were smart, not because they had the best weapons, but because they refused to accept a galaxy built on fear and domination, because they believed there was a better way, and because when pushed, they would fight for that belief with everything they had. The war had taught the galaxy an important lesson. You could conquer humans. You could defeat them in battle. You could even kill them, but you could never make them surrender their dignity. You could never make them accept injustice. And you could never make them stop believing that a better future was possible. That was what made them dangerous. That was what made them different. And that was what saved the galaxy. The merchant captain who refused to move his ship had started a revolution, not with weapons or speeches, but with the simple act of standing his ground when everyone expected him to yield. His legacy lived on in every free world, in every equal partnership, in every species that now had a voice. The galaxy had declared war on humanity, thinking they would win easily. They had been wrong, and now, 10 years later, even they were grateful for their mistake. Captain Dae-hyun stood on the bridge of his cargo ship, looking at the massive space station ahead. Nexus Prime was the biggest trading station in this part of space. Ships from 100 different alien worlds came here to buy and sell goods. His ship, the Indomitable Spirit, was small compared to most vessels here. But Dae-hyun had been trading in space for 20 years. He knew how to survive. Next to him, Commander Jiwan checked the navigation controls. She was his first officer and his most trusted friend. They had worked together for 15 years. Docking Bay 12 is ready for us, Jiwon said. We should be able to land in 10 minutes. Daehyun nodded. Today was supposed to be simple. Deliver their cargo of rare metals, pick up some medicine for the human colonies and leave. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous, but then everything changed. A massive warship appeared on their screens. It was 3 times bigger than any ship Daehyun had ever seen. The hull looked like it was made of crystal that caught the light from nearby stars. This was a Vixari warship. The Vixari were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had ruled much of known space for thousands of years. They are demanding we move, Jiwon said, reading the message on her screen. They want Docking Bay 12. Daehyun frowned. According to Galactic Council rules, they had arrived first. The docking bay was theirs. It was a simple matter of following the law. Tell them we arrived first, Daehyun said. We have priority according to station regulations. Jiwon looked worried. She knew the Vixari did not like being told no. But she sent the message anyway. The response came fast and angry. The Vixari commander demanded they move immediately. No explanations. No discussions. Just orders. For a moment, Daehyun thought about giving up the docking bay. It would be easier, safer, but something in him refused. Humans had been in the galactic community for only 50 years. In that time, they had been pushed around, ignored, and treated like children. Other species saw them as weak mammals who barely understood technology. Not today. Send them the council regulations, Daehyun said. We have every right to this docking bay. Captain, are you sure? Jiwon asked. I am sure. The indomitable spirit docked at Bay 12. The Vixari warship was forced to wait and use another bay. It took them an extra 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes changed everything. 3 hours later, Daehyun was in the station's trading hall when he heard his name called. He turned to see Ambassador Yuna walking toward him quickly. She was Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. She looked worried. Captain Daehyun, she said quietly. We need to talk now. They found a quiet corner. Yuna explained that the Vixari were very angry about what happened. The warship belonged to High Chancellor Talon himself. He was the leader of the entire Vixari Empire. Making him wait was seen as a terrible insult. I was following the rules, Daehyun said. I know, Yuna replied. And you were right. But the Vixari do not care about rules when it comes to species they consider beneath them. Then maybe they need to learn that humans are not beneath anyone. Before Yuna could respond, a group of Vixari guards appeared. Their crystalline bodies reflected the station lights in sharp angles. They were tall, much taller than humans. Their faces had no expressions that Daehyun could read. High Chancellor Talon demands your presence, one guard said. His voice sounded like grinding glass. Daehyun and Yuna were taken to a large conference room. High Chancellor Talon sat at the far end. He was even taller than his guards. His crystalline body pulsed with inner light. Around the room stood dozens of other aliens. Some were curious. Most looked afraid. You are the human who refused my ship, Talon said. His voice was cold and hard. I followed station regulations, Daehyun replied. Regulations are for equals, Talon said. You are not my equal. Your species has been in space for barely 50 years. We have ruled the galaxy for 50 centuries. You will apologize and acknowledge Vixari superiority, or there will be consequences. The room went silent. Everyone waited to see what the humans would do. Surely they would apologize. Surely they would submit. That was what weaker species always did. Ambassador Yuna stepped forward. She had spent years learning diplomacy. She believed in peaceful solutions. But she also believed in dignity. High Chancellor, she said calmly, Captain Daehyun acted according to Galactic Council law. All species are supposed to be equal under those laws. We cannot apologize for following the rules that all of us agreed to follow. Talon's body flashed bright red. Around the room, other aliens stepped back. You dare to lecture me about laws? Talon stood up. He was almost 8 feet tall. Your species is nothing. You have no great fleets, no powerful weapons. You survive because we allow you to survive. We survive because we have the right to survive, Yuna replied. Her voice did not shake. The same right as any other species. For a long moment, Talon stared at her. Then he laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Very well, he said. You want to be treated as equals? Then you will be treated as enemies. I, High Chancellor Talon of the Vixari Empire, declare war on the human species. You have 1 week to surrender completely. If you do not, we will destroy every human world we find. The room exploded in noise. Aliens shouted in dozens of languages. Some species had been hoping humans might stand up to the Vexari. Others thought the humans were fools who just signed their own death sentence. Daehyun looked at Jiwon, who had been standing quietly nearby. She met his eyes and gave a small nod. They both knew what this meant: war, real war. Against the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Ambassador Yuna sent an emergency message to Earth. Within hours, the news spread across all human colonies. The Vexari Empire had declared war. Most of the galaxy expected humans to surrender immediately. They were so new to space, so weak compared to the Vexari. It would be a short war. Maybe not even a real war at all. But the galaxy did not know humans very well. They did not know about Earth's history. Thousands of years of warfare. Millions of battles. Humans had fought each other across every continent, in every environment. With every weapon they could create, they had learned to survive in deserts and jungles, in frozen wastelands and scorching heat. The Vexari had been the strongest species for so long that they forgot what it meant to really fight. They forgot that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who has nothing to lose. On Earth, Admiral Kyung-soo received the news of the war declaration. He was the commander of all Earth's military forces. He read the message 3 times. Then he smiled. His officers looked at him in confusion. Why was he smiling? They were facing the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Finally, Admiral Kyung-soo said quietly, "They gave us a reason to show them who we really are." He called his senior commanders together. They had been preparing for something like this since humanity joined the galactic community. They knew they were seen as weak. They knew other species did not respect them. Now they would change that perception. The Admiral's message to all human forces was simple. The Vexari think they declared war on a weak species. Let us teach them what humans really are. Let us show them why you should never corner a predator. Across human space, fleets began to move. Soldiers prepared for battle. Scientists worked on new weapons. And every human from Earth to the furthest colony felt something awaken inside them. Pride, anger, determination. The Vexari wanted war. They would get more than they bargained for. The coalition of free worlds was growing stronger every day. What started as just humans and 3 other species now included 12 different worlds. Each brought unique abilities to the fight. General Sung Jin had been given command of all coalition ground forces. It was a difficult job. Each species fought differently. The Morgothi preferred defensive positions. The Iridians liked quick strikes. And humans used tactics that confused everyone. But Sung Jin was patient. He spent time learning how each species thought and fought. He found ways to combine their strengths. The Morgothi would build strong defenses. The Iridians would scout ahead. And humans would coordinate everything and strike where the enemy was weakest. Most importantly, Sung Jin treated every soldier with respect, no matter what species they were. This was unusual in the galaxy. Most military leaders only cared about their own kind, but Sung Jin showed that he valued everyone equally. The alien soldiers noticed this. They began to trust him, to fight harder for him, because he fought for them. Meanwhile, High Chancellor Talon was preparing his final offensive. He had gathered every remaining Vexari ship. He had called in favors from species who still feared him. And he had authorized the use of weapons that should never be used, stellar destroyers, ancient weapons from a more violent age. They could ignite a planet's atmosphere or shatter its crust. They were banned by every civilized species for good reason. But Talon no longer cared about rules. He wanted to win, and he wanted to make an example that would terrify the entire galaxy back into submission. His target was New Sol, the world that had embarrassed his forces at the beginning of the war. He would destroy it completely. Show everyone what happened when you defied the Vexari Empire. Captain Daehyun and the Indomitable Spirit were near New Sol when they detected the Vexari strike force. It was a small fleet, only 12 ships, but one of them had an unusual energy signature. Commander Jiwon studied the readings. Her face went pale. "That is a stellar destroyer," she said quietly. "If they use it on New Sol, every living thing on the planet will die." Daehyun looked at his crew. They were tired from months of fighting. They had been planning to rest and resupply, but there was no time for that now. "Send a message to the fleet," he ordered. "Tell them what we found, then set course to intercept." "Sir, we cannot fight 12 Vexari warships," one officer protested. "We do not need to fight all of them. Daehyun replied. We just need to stop the one carrying the weapon. The indomitable spirit accelerated toward the Vexari fleet. They were badly outnumbered. The human ship was small and damaged from previous battles. But they had surprise on their side. The Vexari did not expect anyone to attack them. They were focused on reaching New Seoul. When the indomitable spirit appeared and opened fire, it took them several minutes to respond. Those minutes were enough. Daehyun aimed all weapons at the ship carrying the stellar destroyer. The shields held at first, but the indomitable spirit kept firing, kept pressing forward. Our shields are failing, someone reported. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Keep firing, Daehyun ordered. The other Vexari ships were turning now, bringing their weapons to bear. The indomitable spirit would be destroyed in moments. But Daehyun had one more option. He looked at Jiwon. She understood immediately. Full power to engines, he said. Ramming speed, no, Jiwon shouted. There has to be another way. There is not, Daehyun said calmly. Get to the escape pods, all of you. That is an order. The crew hesitated. They had followed him for so long. Through so many battles. Go, Daehyun shouted. I will buy you time to escape. Tell everyone what the Vexari tried to do here. Make sure the galaxy knows. Jiwon grabbed his arm. She wanted to argue, to find some way to save him, but she saw the determination in his eyes. He had made his choice. It has been an honor, Captain, she said, her voice breaking. The honor was mine, Commander. Now go, the crew evacuated. Escape pods launched toward New Seoul, broadcasting emergency signals. Daehyun sat alone on the bridge of his ship, guiding it toward the Vexari vessel. He thought about the docking bay at Nexus Prime where this all started. One simple decision to not back down. It had led to war, to death, to suffering. But it had also shown the galaxy that humans would not be pushed around, that some things were worth fighting for, worth dying for. The indomitable spirit struck the Vexari ship at full speed. The impact destroyed both vessels in a massive explosion. The stellar destroyer was caught in the blast. It detonated harmlessly in space instead of on the planet below. New Seoul was saved. 5 million people lived because one merchant captain refused to let them die. Commander Jiwon and the surviving crew were recovered by coalition ships. She immediately sent out the recordings from their battle. The entire galaxy saw what the Vexari had tried to do. They saw proof that the Vexari were willing to use banned weapons on civilian populations. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Species that had been neutral or quietly supporting the Vexari turned against them. Even some Vexari colonies rebelled, refusing to support such actions. The galactic community was united in outrage. High Chancellor Talon had made a terrible mistake. In trying to terrify everyone back into submission, he had instead turned the entire galaxy against him. Ambassador Yuna called an emergency session of what remained of the Galactic Council. Species after species condemned the Vexari. They demanded action. We stand at a crossroads, Yuna said to the assembled delegates. For thousands of years, the Vexari have ruled through fear and might. We accepted this because we thought there was no alternative. But now we know better. The humans showed us that resistance is possible. That dignity matters more than safety. That some fights must be fought regardless of the cost. The Council voted. For the first time in galactic history, they declared a criminal empire. The Vexari leadership was to be removed by force. All species were authorized to take military action. Admiral Kyung-soo prepared the final assault. The coalition fleet was now massive. 50 human ships plus another 100 vessels from allied species. They would strike at the Vexari homeworld of Crystallis. It would be the largest fleet battle in recorded history. High Chancellor Talon knew they were coming. He gathered every remaining Vexari ship to defend their homeworld. 200 vessels against 150. The Vexari still had numbers, but they no longer had the advantage of fear. The battle for Crystallis began at dawn. Ships filled the sky, their weapons lighting up the darkness. The fighting was brutal and chaotic. Ships exploded. Soldiers died. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. But the coalition fought with a purpose that the Vexari had lost. They were fighting for freedom, for justice, for a galaxy where might did not make right. Dr. Hana had been working on one final weapon, her sonic disruptors, upgraded and more powerful. They were deployed across the coalition fleet. When activated, they sent waves of disrupting frequencies toward the Vexari ships. The effect was devastating. Vexari crews became disoriented. Their ships lost coordination. What had been an organized defense became chaos. The coalition pressed their advantage. General Sung Jin led ground forces onto the planet itself. They did not destroy Vexari cities. They did not slaughter civilians. They simply neutralized military targets and moved forward. High Chancellor Talon watched his empire crumble from his command center. He refused all offers to surrender. He would rather die than admit defeat to lesser species. In the final moments, as coalition forces breached his facility, Talon sent one last message. It was broadcast across the entire galaxy. "We underestimated you," he said, his voice tired and broken. "We thought you were weak because you were young. We thought you were nothing because you had no empire. We were wrong. You are dangerous not because you are strong, but because you refuse to accept your place. You fight when you should surrender. You endure when you should break. You care about each other in ways we never understood." He paused, his crystalline form flickering with dimming light. "You have won. May the galaxy you build be better than the one we created." Those were his final words. Moments later, coalition soldiers entered his chamber. High Chancellor Talon was dead. The Vexari Empire had fallen. The war was over. After 18 months of fighting, humanity and its allies had won. The galaxy would never be the same. The war entered its 4th month. High Chancellor Talon was furious. What should have been a quick victory had turned into a nightmare. Human forces were everywhere and nowhere. They attacked supply convoys. They sabotaged Vexari bases. They refused to fight in ways that made sense. Talon ordered simultaneous attacks on 3 human colony worlds. He sent 100 warships divided into 3 fleets. Surely the humans could not defend 3 places at once. But Admiral Kyung-soo had been expecting something like this. He did not try to defend all 3 worlds. Instead, he evacuated 2 of them completely and concentrated all his forces on the 3rd. When the Vexari arrived, they found 1 world empty, and 1 world ready for war. The battle lasted 4 days. The humans lost 12 ships, but they destroyed 23 Vexari warships and forced the rest to retreat. It was another victory, but Kyung-soo knew they were running out of ships and soldiers. They needed help. They needed allies. Ambassador Yuna had been working on this problem. She had been meeting secretly with representatives from other species. Many of them were afraid of the Vexari, but fear was starting to change into hope. Counselor Bora of the Quillen was her strongest supporter. Bora had been sharing intelligence with humans for months now, but she wanted to do more. "My people are tired of living under Vexari control," Bora told Yuna during a secret meeting. "But we are not warriors. We do not have weapons or soldiers." "You have other things," Yuna replied. "You have the best sensors in the galaxy. You can see Vexari ships coming from farther away than anyone else. That information saves lives." Bora thought about this. She looked around the room. They were meeting on a neutral station far from both human and Vexari space. "There are others like me," Bora said quietly. "Other species who want to be free of Vexari dominance. If you can promise to protect us, we will help you." "I promise," Yuna said. Over the next month, a coalition formed. The Quillen joined officially. So did the Morgathi, a species of brilliant engineers. The Iridians, who had once been Vexari allies, switched sides after seeing how the war was going. Each species brought something valuable. The Morgathi improved human ship engines. The Iridians shared their knowledge of Vexari military strategy. And the Quillen provided early warning of every Vexari fleet movement. The coalition of free worlds was born. Meanwhile, Captain Dae-hyun and Commander Ji-won had been very busy. Their converted merchant ship, the Indomitable Spirit, had attacked 15 Vexari supply convoys. They never fought in a direct battle. They just appeared, destroyed the cargo ships, and vanished. The Vexari High Command was embarrassed. How could one small human ship cause so much trouble? They sent hunters to catch Dae-hyun. 3 times Vexari warships tried to trap the Indomitable Spirit. 3 times Dae-hyun escaped using his knowledge of trade routes and hidden paths through space. "They are getting better at predicting where we will strike," Ji-won said after their latest narrow escape. "Then we need to be more unpredictable," Dae-hyun replied with a tired smile. His crew had grown from 10 people to 30. They were merchants, miners, even a few former pirates. All of them wanted to fight. All of them trusted Dae-hyun to keep them alive. On their 16th raid, something went wrong. The Vexari were waiting. 4 warships surrounded them. The indomitable spirit was fast, but not fast enough to escape all 4 ships. "Shields are failing," one crew member shouted. Dae-hyun made a decision. They could not run and they could not fight, so they would do something crazy. "Full power to engines," he ordered. "We are going through them." The indomitable spirit accelerated directly at the largest Vexari warship. At the last second, Dae-hyun changed course just slightly. They passed so close to the Vexari ship that the 2 vessels almost touched. The Vexari captain panicked and turned hard, crashing into another Vexari ship. In the confusion, Dae-hyun jumped to hyperspace and escaped. When they reached safety, the crew was silent. Then someone started laughing. Soon everyone was laughing and cheering. They had survived, but Ji-won saw that Dae-hyun was not celebrating. "What is wrong?" she asked. "That was too close," he said. "Next time we might not be so lucky. We need to be smarter, or we need to do something that really matters." Admiral Kyung-soo had been planning something big. With the coalition providing support, human forces were holding their own. But holding was not winning. They needed to strike a blow that would change the war. He gathered his staff and presented his plan. It was risky. It was complicated. And if it worked, it would destroy a significant part of the Vexari fleet. The plan was simple in concept but hard in execution. Human intelligence had discovered a major Vexari shipyard. It was supposed to be secret, hidden in an asteroid field, but the Quillen sensors had found it. Kyung-soo did not want to attack the real shipyard. Instead, he would create a fake one. He would make the Vexari believe humanity had discovered a secret shipyard of their own. The Vexari would send a large fleet to destroy it, and that fleet would fly into a trap. It took 2 months to prepare. Human engineers built fake facilities on a dead moon. They made it look exactly like a shipyard. They even had old ships sitting in docks looking like they were being repaired. Then they let the Vexari find it. They made sure Vexari scouts saw supply ships going to the moon. They had fake communications that Vexari spies could intercept. High Chancellor Talon received the intelligence report with satisfaction. Finally, a chance to cripple human shipbuilding. He ordered a massive strike. 200 ships, half the Vexari battle fleet. When the Vexari fleet arrived at the fake shipyard, they found what looked like an easy target. They moved in to destroy it. Then the trap closed. Thousands of automated mines activated. They had been drifting in space, looking like debris. Now they came alive and attacked the Vexari ships. At the same time, drone fighters poured out of hidden bases on the moon. They were not as good as piloted ships, but there were thousands of them. And hidden throughout the asteroid field, human ships waited. When the Vexari formation broke under the mine and drone attacks, the human fleet struck. The battle lasted 8 hours. It was brutal and chaotic, but when it ended, the Vexari had lost 87 ships. The humans lost 19. The galaxy was stunned. The Battle of the False Forge, as it came to be called, was the biggest Vexari defeat in 1,000 years, not just bigger than New Sol, bigger than anything in living memory. Across the galaxy, species that had been neutral started to reconsider. Some began refusing to pay tribute to the Vexari. Others secretly reached out to the coalition. The Vexari Empire, which had seemed eternal and unbeatable, was cracking. High Chancellor Talon raged in his command center. He had lost half his fleet. His generals were making excuses. Other species were openly defying him, but most humiliating of all, he had been tricked. The humans had outsmarted him. They had predicted his actions and used his own aggression against him. How is this possible? He demanded of his advisors. They are humans. They should not be able to do this. One advisor, braver than the others, spoke up. Perhaps we underestimated them. Perhaps there are things about humans we do not understand. Talon turned his glowing eyes on the advisor. For a moment, everyone thought he would have the advisor executed. Then Talon laughed. It was a bitter, angry sound. "You are right," Talon said. "We underestimated them. We will not make that mistake again. Gather the remaining fleet. We will crush the humans and everyone who helps them. But this time we will use every weapon we have." His advisors looked nervous. They knew what he meant. The Vexari had weapons that were banned by galactic law. Terrible weapons that could destroy entire planets. Talon was willing to break every rule to win, and the humans would have to stop him. The Vexari fleet arrived at New Sol 3 days after declaring war. New Sol was humanity's largest colony world outside of Earth. 5 million humans lived there. It had farms, factories, and families. It was home. War Marshal Drexus commanded the Vexari fleet. He had fought in dozens of wars. He had conquered 20 different worlds. He expected this to be quick and easy. A few shots at the human settlements, maybe destroy one city, and the humans would surrender. That was how it always worked. Lesser species saw Vexari power and gave up. Why fight when you could not win? But when the Vexari fleet came out of hyperspace near New Sol, they found something unexpected. The planet looked empty. No defensive ships. No weapons platforms, nothing. Where are they? Drexus asked his officers. We detect life signs on the surface, one officer reported, but no military forces. Maybe they already ran away. Drexus ordered the fleet to enter orbit. They would land troops and take control of the colony. Then they would broadcast the victory across the galaxy. Other human worlds would see what happened and surrender. It was a good plan. But the Vexari did not understand humans. Colonel Minho watched the Vexari ships from his hidden command post deep underground. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He knew the Vexari would come. He also knew that fighting them in space would be suicide. Human ships were not as powerful as Vexari warships, so he changed the battlefield. For 3 days, human civilians had been evacuating. They used small ships and secret routes to escape to other colonies. Most of the 5 million people were already safe. The ones who remained were soldiers and volunteers. They had turned the entire planet into a trap. All units, this is Colonel Minho, he spoke into his communicator. The enemy is entering orbit. Stay hidden. Wait for my signal. Remember your training. Remember what we are fighting for. The Vexari landed their troops in the main city. 10,000 Vexari soldiers marched through empty streets. Their crystalline bodies reflected the sunlight. They looked like an army of living glass. Then the first explosion hit. Mines hidden in the streets erupted. Buildings that looked empty suddenly fired weapons from windows. The Vexari formation broke apart in chaos. Drexus watched from his command ship in orbit. He could not believe what he was seeing. The humans were not running. They were fighting. And they were fighting in ways the Vexari had never seen before. Human soldiers did not stand and fight like Vexari warriors. They hit and ran. They used the city itself as a weapon. They knew every street, every building, every hiding place. The Vexari were lost in an environment designed to kill them. What the Vexari did not know was that humans were pursuit predators. On ancient Earth, human hunters would chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Humans could keep going when other species had to stop and rest. The Vexari were powerful fighters, but they needed long rest periods after battle. Their crystalline bodies required time to regenerate energy. Humans just needed a few hours of sleep and some food. They could fight day after day. After 1 week, the Vexari had lost 2,000 soldiers. They controlled almost nothing. Human attacks came at all hours. There was no rest. No peace. Drexus ordered more troops to land. 15,000 more soldiers joined the fight. But it did not help. The humans just adjusted their tactics. They avoided large battles and focused on small raids. Supply lines were attacked. Communication posts were destroyed. Vexari soldiers began to feel hunted. Dr. Hana worked in a secret laboratory far from the fighting. She was a scientist who studied alien biology. Before the war, she had published papers about Vexari physiology. Now she used that knowledge to create weapons. The Vexari were crystalline beings. Their bodies were strong, but they had a weakness. Certain sound frequencies could disrupt their molecular structure. Dr. Hana built sonic weapons that made Vexari soldiers sick and disoriented. When these weapons were deployed in week 2, the battle turned even more. Vexari soldiers found themselves unable to fight effectively. Their senses were confused. Their bodies felt wrong. After 3 weeks, Drexus made his report to High Chancellor Talon. His fleet had lost 40% of its soldiers. They controlled only a few city blocks. The humans showed no signs of surrendering. This is impossible, Talon said, his voice sharp with anger. They are humans. They should not be able to fight like this. They are not fighting like civilized species, Drexus replied. They use tactics from primitive warfare. They hide in ambush. They never face us directly. Then crush them. Use the full power of the fleet. But Drexus knew that would not work. Bombing the planet from orbit would destroy everything, including the resources the Vexari wanted. And it would make humans even more determined to fight. Instead, Drexus decided to withdraw. It was the first time in 500 years that Vexari forces had retreated from a battle. The news spread across the galaxy like fire. On New Sol, Colonel Minho and his soldiers watched the Vexari ships leave orbit. They had won. Against impossible odds, they had actually won. But Minho knew this was just the beginning. The Vexari would come back. Next time they would be ready. Next time they would bring more ships and more soldiers. What Minho did not know was how much this victory had changed things. All across the galaxy, other species watched and wondered. The humans had beaten the Vexari. It seemed impossible. But it had happened. On the planet Quillos, Counselor Bora read the reports about New Sol. The Quillan were a peaceful trading species. They had lived under Vexari dominance for 3,000 years. They paid tribute and followed orders. But Bora had always hated the arrangement. She thought the Quillan deserved better. Now, watching humans fight back successfully, she began to hope. Maybe the Vexari were not unbeatable. Maybe change was possible. She sent a secret message to Ambassador Yuna. In it, she offered information about Vexari fleet movements. She could not help openly, not yet. But she could help in small ways. Meanwhile, Captain Daehyun felt terrible guilt. The war had started because of his refusal to move his ship. 5 million people had to evacuate their homes. Thousands of soldiers were fighting and dying. He talked about this with Commander Jiwon on their ship. "This is my fault," he said. "If I had just moved the ship, none of this would have happened." Jiwon shook her head. She had known Daehyun for many years. She knew how he thought. "No," she said firmly. "The Vexari wanted to keep us weak and afraid. Sooner or later, this would have happened anyway. You just gave humanity a reason to stand up. That is nothing to feel guilty about. But I am just a merchant. I should not have started a war. You did not start the war. The Vexari did when they treated us like we were nothing. All you did was refuse to act like we were nothing." Daehyun thought about her words. Maybe she was right. But he still felt responsible. If people were going to die in this war, he wanted to do something to help. "We need to help the war effort," he said. "Our ship can carry supplies. We can transport weapons and medicine to the colonies. Or we could do more," Jiwon suggested. "We know trade routes better than anyone. We know where Vexari supply ships travel. We could hit them where they do not expect it." Daehyun looked at his friend and smiled. They had been merchants for 20 years. Now they would become something else. Raiders, pirates, freedom fighters. They began modifying the indomitable spirit. They added weapons and stronger shields. They recruited crew members who wanted to fight. Within 2 weeks, they were ready. On Earth, Admiral Kyung-soo studied the reports from New Sol. The victory was good, but he knew the Vexari would adapt. They would send larger fleets. They would change their tactics. He called a meeting with his top commanders. They needed to think ahead. The Vexari had hundreds of warships. Humanity had maybe 50 ships that could fight in space. They needed to win this war without fighting fair. "We cannot match their fleet strength," Kyung-soo told his officers, "so we will not try. We will make them afraid. We will hit their supply lines. We will use every advantage we have. And we will never fight the way they expect us to fight." One officer asked, "What advantages do we have?" Kyung-soo smiled. It was not a nice smile. "We have surprise," he said. "They think they know what we can do. They are wrong. We also have experience. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years. The Vexari have been winning without really fighting for centuries. They forgot how to struggle. We never did," the officers nodded. They understood. This would be a long war, a hard war. But humans knew how to endure. The galaxy was watching now. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. Could the humans actually win? Or would the Vexari crush them eventually? No one knew the answer yet. But one thing was clear. The humans were not giving up. And that fact alone changed everything.